Hello, Earthlings, and welcome back to SoundMind. In this episode, as you could probably tell from the title, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite people I met as a student at Berklee College of Music, from which I graduated last month. Like I said in last week's vlog, I should probably begin at the beginning. One of the first guys I met that I didn't already know before I started, or was one of my roommates, was Matthew Azrieli, that I still communicate with, that is. I was in a triple my first year. I had two really good roommates. I met Matt when I walked in on him and Nick, one of my roommates, jamming on, he says it was his song Choke, although knowing Nick, it may as well have been Gold Star for Robot Boy by Guided by Voices. Nick turned me on to Guided by Voices. I'm glad he did. Apparently, because I don't remember this, I remember meeting Matt, but I don't quite remember how. I remember it was via Nick, but he says I walked in on him and Nick jamming, and I just started playing along because I had my keyboard set up and I had a melodica. It may have been Jake's cajon because he's my other roommate and he's a voice principal, but he also plays drums and guitar. As some of you probably know, I actually did a 2-month tour around the US and Canada with Matthew Azrieli last summer, and that was really good. We met quite a lot of excellent musicians who didn't go to Berklee, but that's going to come up later in this video. There's another guy I have to mention because he's probably my best friend, but I can't mention him yet without mentioning Juan Arango, who I met in my Arranging 2 class in my second semester. He's a brilliant guitarist, a great writer as well. At the time, he formed 2 bands with another guitarist, Josie Rosales. They were from Colombia and Venezuela, respectively, and they formed 2 bands, a Spanish language reggae band and an English language rock band, and I met the bassist in that band, Trevor Mooney, who's also gonna be mentioned later in the video. I actually joined that band through him, not through Juan. Basically, they were looking for a singer, and I was in an ensemble my 3rd semester with Trevor, John Paul's rock jam band that I mentioned in the last video, and I mentioned that I sang the first week, so Trevor invited me to join this band that Juan Arango happened to also be in. I joined as a keyboardist because I said I didn't want to be the lead singer at the time. I wasn't as comfortable as a singer, although I got a lot more comfortable in that band, so I was almost ready to take over as lead singer by the time our original lead singer left, but there was another guy we were going to try and that fell through. Over the summer I told the guys that I wanted to be the lead singer, but by the time school started, both of the guitarists had left. It was an amicable thing, I think. It was certainly amicable when Trevor also left. He was almost going to leave with the guitarist, but Michael persuaded him to stay like a month or something. We decided we wanted no more than 1 guitarist, so here comes the guy it took all that explanation to mention, Joe Sprunt. I'm glad I met him when I did. This was the fall of 2015. I had just played in an ensemble with Joe in the previous semester, so I asked him to join the band. He said yes. Unlike Juan, he isn't a very prolific writer, but he's a damn good guitarist. So at the time, I wanted to make that band sort of the vehicle for my songs. But after Trevor left, again amicably, I had trouble finding a bassist, and at that time Joe was asking me to play for a performance class he had, because he liked my playing as much as I liked his. And also at the time, that's when Matthew Azrieli mentioned that he wanted me to come on a tour he was doing, and he was looking for a drummer, so I hooked him up with Michael Gavoni, who was the drummer in that band I was in that pretty much broke up, but I kept playing, and eventually Trevor also ended up playing with Joe in later incarnations of his band. And the drummer in Joe's band was another Juan Mejia, also from Colombia. He's a really versatile drummer. Eventually we added a female vocalist to the lineup, Heidi Irizarry. She's one of the best singers I've sung with, and she mostly does metal. She can do growls as well as cleans, and she can get up there. She can really belt. And that's the lineup that did Joe's Calf Show, which I believe is still online. The link I used was bit.ly/Berklee_calf. Once again, Berklee is spelled Berklee. It's very different from Berklee, California. Being from California, I got that misunderstanding a lot. As those of you who watched my vlogs from last summer probably know, the tour with Matthew Azrieli went great. The other two guys in the band I hadn't mentioned, John Grealish and Jordan Rinchiera, who played bass and trumpet respectively. I think they were each responsible for about a third of the gigs. Matt booked the rest. They kind of formed a booking company thing. Well, kind of as a joke, because John told some band he was the booking agent, and he ended up becoming one. Many of his jokes become reality. Anyway, back to Joe Sprunt. One of the first performances I did with him, I think it was like the second or something, was at Pop Rock Guitar Night 2016 in the Berklee Performance Center. And afterwards, I was approached by Susan Rogers, who is a professor at Berklee, but she was also Prince's engineer. She asked me if I would play keys in a session that another Berklee musician, Sitara, was doing, that Wendy and Lisa happened to be part of, and they wanted a second keyboardist, and that was one of the highlights of my time at Berklee. Add to that the fact that the drummer was Helen De La Rosa, who is one of the best drummers. I don't think I need to add much more to that sentence. Just one of the best drummers. The most pocket I've ever heard a drummer play with. Of course, it was great to meet Wendy and Lisa. I really gelled with Lisa on the keys. They liked my playing, I liked theirs. Everyone liked everyone. I believe Sitara is going to release the song we recorded, Digital War, sometime this summer. I don't know if that's the exact recording I was on, but it's a great song, whether or not, no matter who's on it. And that was before Prince died. For those of you who don't know, Wendy and Lisa played in Prince and the Revolution. Another person I couldn't do this video without mentioning, Aura Pineda. I first met her my fourth semester, same time I met Joe Sprunt by coincidence in my Jazz Counterpoint 1 class, but only last fall we were in 20th Century Women Songwriters together, and I mean that was just a melange of wonderful songwriters. How often do you get me, Aura Pineda, Kristen Corpus, Mahir John Kutsuk, Emma Williams, or Emma Grace is her solo artist name, Phoenix Lazar, and Hound, and Aubrey Harris. They're all really different, but really wonderful songwriters in their own way. Aura is a much better lyricist than me, which really helped on our first assignment, which was to partner up and have one person write a Dorothy Fields type lyric, and then have the other person write music, like Jimmy McHugh or Jerome Kern. That was one of our first songwriting assignments for that class. But it was so good that we decided we wanted to write another song, which turned into the song Our Bags, which Aura and I performed at her final recital, which should still be online. It's at bit.ly/Berklee_Colvin. I don't know if she's going to upload it to another site. I hope she does. As it happens, I played with Aura in her final show the day after I played with Joe Sprunt in his final show. And they were, of course, very different. One being a 5-piece rock show in this big calf, and then an 8-piece folk show in a small hall. Another person I should mention is Luke Appleton Webster. He's another really good drummer. I actually met him when John Paul's rock jam band that I was in with Trevor, my third semester, did our final recital. He was actually there to record it, because I think he had just started Berklee. I didn't actually have any classes with him, but I ran into him quite a bit. I did jam with him once, with him and some other guys, in January 2015, right before the big snowstorm, or series of snowstorms. And we also ended up both accompanying Jamie Linhart's pop rock country ensemble just this spring semester, which was one of the best classes I ever participated in at Berklee. I mean, there were no weak links. It's like everyone was an essential part of that class. Phoenix Lazar was also in it. Lo Ortiz, who is in my final recital that you will see, either next month or August. I'm going to be uploading that recital song by song throughout July and August, and then talking about it each week, talking about each song each week. It also worked that us four accompanists all knew each other from previous things, because Ben Young, the bassist, I had Western music history with, and Kevin Scollins, the guitarist, I had played in a project band with. I should probably mention everyone in that class because I mean they've all got such distinct personalities, but they were all indispensable. I already mentioned Lowe and Phoenix. Susie, I still don't know how to pronounce her last name. I really should have found out. She's another songwriter in the sort of pop Fleetwood, maybe Fleetwood Mac type vein. Julia Jade, who is another songwriter, although in the final performance we did, she didn't do one of her own songs. She did You Keep Me Hanging On by the Supremes, and it was great to kind of watch her progress from being more of a songwriter, sort of coming up from behind the piano, and then, when she started doing You Keep Me Hanging On, she kind of went into a sort of involuntary mashed potato in the beginning, and that was great to watch. Kathy, who's much older than the rest of us, she was a music therapy major. She gave us all breathing buddies. I think I still have mine. There were these stuffed animals that you lie on your back and breathe, and if they go up and down, you're breathing right. And then there were the three guys in the ensemble, Lane, Vincent, and Double O. Each had a really distinctive style of singing, because Vincent, he's kind of got this Josh Groban type voice. Lane also has a pretty rich voice, although not quite as Josh Groban vibrato-y. And then Double O, he had done mostly jazz before Berklee, but someone asked him to sing Holy Dove by Civil Twilight, and then this rock personality came out of him. Some of my other favorite people I met at Berklee were Alexander Anderson, who I had known before I started Berklee. Well, not so much. I met him at a Berklee orientation event in LA, because I'm from San Rafael, California. He's from San Diego, so it was more convenient for him than me, but still not as far as Boston from here. A name some of you might recognize that I had the privilege of meeting is Sasha Sloan. She was in a class with me my first semester called Artistry, Creativity, Inquiry. It's one of those classes that's generally just about putting yourself out there as a musician. I mean, she sure did. She became Sasha Sloan. She co-wrote Hold On by Steve Aoki and Louis Tomlinson, as well as a lot of other successful singles. Joe Everett he was the bassist in my final recital, and I had a lot of classes with him. He was in a show, kind of a Berklee show. It wasn't a Berklee-sponsored show, but it was one of the more unforgettable shows I saw during my time at Berklee. It was at Out of the Blue 2, an art gallery in Cambridge that puts on a lot of concert events. He was the bassist in the band Fordham Road, a great prog band. I later had a class with Kristen Veach, the lead singer and composer. I came to see Earth Mother, which had Trevor Mooney and Josie Rosales. That was the band they formed when they left the original band. And the other band was Paracuja. They're an experimental band. I would classify them as jazz only because they had a saxophone. Boy, what a saxophone. Paul Melland. He later ended up playing in my final recital. One of the best saxophonists I ever worked with. He's got a crazy way of playing, which is in no way a reflection of his personality. I like guys like that. Some people I played with that I love the way they play. Amaury Altmaier. I played in the prog ensemble my 5th semester. He went on to join the prog metal band Mauritius, Berklee's favorite prog metal band. Nick Sanchez was also the drummer in that ensemble. Great drummer, great guy. Definitely another one of my favorite drummers. A couple of my favorite bassists. Ole Kirking, who I played in a couple ensembles, both my first year, strangely enough. I kind of noticed the way that he and I were the only ones who really were moving to the music in both ensembles. In fact, that second ensemble was pop indie, led by Dave Weigert, and I had a lot of fun in that ensemble because there were 4 singers, including me. The other 3 played guitar, And we had a lot of fun harmonizing. That's when I first discovered I was a really good high singer, despite the fact that I'm a baritone. And then later in my time at Berklee, I focused a bit more on songwriting. I majored in jazz composition, but if I had to do it all over again, I would dual major in jazz comp and songwriting. One of the first songwriting classes I took was Lyric Writing 1 with Ben Camp, I mentioned in the last vlog. Two of my favorite writers in that class were Kristen Corpus, I already mentioned, and Connor McCoy from Yankee and the Foreigners, one of the best bands out there with multiple singers. Not just in Berklee, but when I saw a calf show of theirs, they became one of my new favorite bands. They're all great writers in their own right. Well, in fact, Sam Marks, the keyboardist, sometimes was a guest assistant teacher in the lyric writing class that I had with Connor. Speaking of Ben Camp, his special topics in songwriting class, I made a lot of friends in that. I mean, you saw a couple of them in a vlog from many months ago. Caroline Vermillion and Russell Clark, both great songwriters. And Attilio, one of my favorite singers, at least as far as R&B goes. I love the fact that he sings a genre, like, it's very modern, but he doesn't really process his voice. He doesn't put a lot of de-esser on it, which lends it to a raw quality, and he doesn't auto-tune for the sake of auto-tuning. Basically, he puts the raw in raw talent. Speaking of the R&B hip-hop scene, the Trap Orchestra or the Straight Goonin Collective or whatever, basically anything Hunter Lamar leads. As I mentioned in a previous vlog, he's the performer I aspired to be. Kyle Thornton and the Company was an early sort of incarnate. A lot of them are in the what I call the Straight Goonin Collective, and a lot of people would also call it that as well, I think. I think Kyle was one of the first friends I made. And last but not least, I should definitely thank everyone else I haven't mentioned who played in my final recital. Sam Spear, Suzuko Hori, Gabe Nakrutman, Daniel Shapansky, who I didn't even know until I asked around for trumpet players and someone recommended him. Robert Mance, Ian Sussman, and of course Lo Ortiz. After she agreed to be in my recital, she asked me to play in her jury performance. And she had a song with the word fuck in it. So she changed it just for the judges. And one of them turned out to be Claire McLeod, who's Australian. So you censor a song, but then you end up performing it for an Australian judge. Anyway, the week after next week, I'll be at Jazz Camp West, and I'll do a vlog on that. And after that, I'll be talking about my recital throughout July and August, and then I'm going to shift the focus of my channel more towards actual songs of mine, like actual music videos, rather than vlogs. And I should definitely have a lot of songs to share with you by then. I should be pretty impatient by then. But that's it for now, so until next time, go forth and be awesome.